Hey, is a sweet potato healthy? Yeah, is a sweet potato healthy? How about whole grain bread? Could whole grain bread be healthy? You know, carbohydrates are the subject of more myths and more misinformation than just about any other subject that exists in the world of nutrition. You know, take the sweet potato, for example. There are oodles of studies which show potential health benefits of the sweet potato, and in particular, lots of the phytochemicals or little small molecules that are inside of a sweet potato that show decreased risk of chronic disease for people who eat sweet potatoes. And despite a whole culture in Okinawa, one of the cultures that has the highest percentages of people that live to be 100 years old, despite their whole culture being based on the sweet potato as a staple, there are people who will argue, you know, a sweet potato has sugar, everything with sugar is bad, you should never eat it. So what are these folks missing? What can you and I take away about the sweet potato or about the whole grain bread? So I want to introduce this concept, which is going to be really important for you. This is step number 5 in the 5 steps to build a sustainable, healthy nutrition plan that's going to work for you. Step number 5 is to eat within your carbohydrate tolerance. And so let's define what the heck that carbohydrate tolerance is. For you and for me and for everybody else in the world, our bodies exist in a state right now that will allow us to eat a certain amount of carbohydrates, and it's probably different for you than it is for me, that will allow us to eat a certain amount of carbohydrates over a certain amount of time without spiking our blood sugar abnormally high. And so just so we get this out of the way, and before I forget, if you have a normal blood sugar metabolism, typically the blood sugar will not go above 140 under almost every circumstance. It will not go above 140 milligrams per deciliter after you eat a meal. So it should stay below 140. If it occasionally got to 150, that would be probably okay. But as a general rule, it should stay below 140. So what defines this state for your body? Well, it's a whole host of things. It's going to be based on your activity level. It's going to be based on your muscle mass. We've talked about muscle mass before, and we'll talk about it a little bit more right now. It's going to be based on your body weight and your fat storage, and in particular, whether you have exceeded this thing that we call healthy fat storage. It's going to be based on how well you sleep. It's going to be based on your stress level. There are a lot of factors that play into the carbohydrate tolerance. But the basic gist is that if you eat below your carbohydrate tolerance, if you eat within your carbohydrate tolerance, you will control your blood sugar, right? So you'll be well on your way to preventing diabetes and ideally reversing pre-diabetes altogether. So as we try to wrap up for this introduction to the concept, and there'll be more training, like always, more training that comes on the weekly sessions. There will be more training that will help to put some more meat on this and help you to dial in even further. But as we start to wrap up and think about this introduction, what can you take away? What can you start doing right now? What are some action steps, some actionable steps that will help you to understand how the heck, okay, great doc, how the heck do I actually eat within my carbohydrate tolerance? And so I think there's 2 pieces to this. So you have to understand what your carbohydrate tolerance is, and then over time you can work to improve it. So let's start with the first one. If you want to understand what your carbohydrate tolerance is, we could say just empirically, right, just based on what I know about you, if you've been diagnosed with prediabetes, it is likely that you can safely consume somewhere between 15 and 30 grams of carbohydrate per meal, or roughly 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrate per day spread out over the day, without spiking your blood sugar abnormally high. So that's a great starting point for each person. But could you dial this in more specifically for you? Well, there's a couple ways that we can actually measure the carbohydrate tolerance. So the hemoglobin A1C, that marker of your average blood sugar looking back over the last 3 months, tells you whether or not you have exceeded your carbohydrate tolerance. If that A1C is high, then yes, you have. And so if you find that over time you are making changes and your A1C is coming down, then that would say that you are doing a better job of eating within your carbohydrate tolerance. Now, the problem with that approach is that the A1C typically is only getting measured, once every 3 months or every 6 months. So there's a lot of lag time between measurements to help you know if you are on the right track. And so if you really want to dial in, there are ways to actually measure what your blood sugar is doing after the meal. You can do that with a thing called a finger stick glucose, where you poke your finger and measure your blood sugar on a little drop of blood. And then Sarah and I both really strongly believe that there is a tool called continuous glucose monitoring, or CGM. That CGM is a really powerful tool that will give you such great feedback on what you're doing with your nutrition and your exercise and your sleep, that we would love to be able to see this tool get into the hands of more people. And so keep your eyes open. There will be emails talking about this tool and some specific training opportunities that will be available to you if you would like to take that extra step. Now, you don't have to do this. You don't have to do this to get results, but if you are somebody who really likes that feedback and perhaps wants to get results, faster and easier, or wants to be able to get that immediate feedback, then this CGM training may be something that you want to take a closer look at. So all of that was to say, gosh, can we understand where the carbohydrate tolerance is? And then the second part of that is to say, can we improve it? Can we improve the carbohydrate tolerance? So if we talk about sweet potato, or we talk about really any other carbohydrate, it may be something that you enjoy, but you've had to cut back on or eliminate because it's been spiking your blood sugar. So how do you improve your carbohydrate tolerance? Well, all those things we talked about, but I would tell you in particular, movement and muscle mass are two critical things. If you can increase your activity level, particularly if you consider yourself sedentary right now, if you start moving, that will dramatically increase your carbohydrate tolerance, because when you're moving your muscles, they are using glucose, and when they're done moving, they have taken some of that glucose out of glycogen, and your body will replenish that storage. So it's going to pull glucose out of the bloodstream to remake that glycogen storage inside the muscle. So moving the muscles more, or if you increase your muscle mass with strength and resistance training, and we've talked about how in menopause, often there are some changes that happen where many women, after they go through menopause, find themselves in a state where they have relatively low muscle mass. And so doing some type of strength or resistance training to increase the muscle mass. So if we have muscle that is moving more, and if we have more muscle to begin with, both of those things will help to improve your carbohydrate tolerance. Now, clearly other things, and probably two that I'll mention right here, would be anything that you do to improve the quality or consistency, the quality, the quantity of your sleep. And number two, anything that you can do to manage your stress better. Those things will also typically have some tangible impacts on your carbohydrate tolerance. Now, a couple little ninja tricks, I suppose, that I will wrap up with would be, when you are eating, remember that if you eat your protein and or your fiber in particular first in the meal, it will lessen the impact of carbohydrates. So eating protein before carbohydrates, we tend to see the blood sugar spikes up less than if you eat the carbohydrates first. And anything that you do to elevate your food quality, so increasing the amount of protein or fiber or water that's coming in with the carbohydrate. This is why a grape has lower impact than a raisin, because it's got more water in there. This is why orange juice has more of an impact, or eating a whole orange has less of an impact than drinking orange juice, because that orange has extra water and fiber, I guess in particular extra fiber in it. So anything that you can do to elevate the food quality, eating protein and fiber first, working on muscle mass, working on muscle movement, working on your sleep, working on your stress, all of these things are going to help improve your carbohydrate tolerance. So the answer is yes, a sweet potato can be part of a sustainable, healthy nutrition plan. Whole grains can be part of a sustainable, healthy nutrition plan. We just have to figure out how to make that work for you if those are foods that you enjoy eating. So I'm going to wrap up for today. As always, I wish you peace and hope you have a great week. Take care.